Hello friends, how are you doing? So I found myself with a couple of chores to do today. I've got some guitars to restring for one of my students, and there's been some stuff that's been playing on my mind that I really wanted to talk to you guys about. If you're if you're a music teacher or you're a musician, then you might find some interesting stuff in this little vlog. I haven't done a vlog for a long time, so I kind of wanted to get back in the habit of doing this, and I figured that throwing a camera up and a mic and grabbing a guitar and spending some time, I'd be doing this anyway, talking to you guys. I thought that was a good way of doing it. So yeah, first of all, I'm going to start with the guitar. I'm going to show you what's going on with that because it's a beaut. It's one of my students. It's called Dan, and this is his guitar. I've kind of started it a little bit earlier on. It's a really, really pretty Mexican Strat. It's so pretty, in fact, that I bought myself pretty much the identical model, just in a different colour, because I had a play on it and I love the neck. And I'm in the market for one of these, so if you know anyone who's got one, give me a shout. I'm just going to snip the rest of the strings off. I'm just using some basic wire snips. This is having a restring and a little bit of a clean up today, so nothing too drastic. It always looks a bit violent ripping the strings off like that, but that's just what we do. So I've been having some interesting conversations with people this week, certainly the back end of this week. For context, today is Saturday, I think it's the 4th of July, Saturday the 4th of July. And the pubs have opened in the UK. We're 12, 13 weeks into this COVID lockdown outbreak business. And yeah, it's all a bit insane, really. People are rushing out to the pubs and bars like everything's cool. Queues around the block at Witherspoons, if the media is anything to be trusted. And we were hoping, and when I say we, I mean music teachers generally, that stuff would get back to normal in September, or at least a semblance of normal, the kind of normal where we can work with it. And I had an interesting conversation with the head of music at one of the schools that I teach at, not naming any names, but this is going to be pretty standard, I think. What the head at the school has decided that there's not going to be no peripatetic music lessons at all in school. There's not going to be any online ones in school time. So if you want lessons as a child or as a parent of a child, you will have to make those arrangements privately for outside of school time. So this is really problematic for music teachers. And that might, you might kind of think, well, what's the problem? Why should we be bothered about music teachers? And that's a fair point, I suppose. And the reason is because the people. And it's a nice thing to be worried about people generally, isn't it? Peripatetic music teachers like myself, we only work in term time. We're self-employed, and that kind of means that we just giving this a bit. I don't need the. I don't know. I'm just going to give this a bit of a spray down, a bit of a clean on the old body. Got some of this lovely Dunlop 65 sort of guitar polish. I use this. This is stock stuff. It's pretty cool. I'm going to put a blast on the fingerboard, but I'm going to polish the frets as well. So I'll show you how I do that in a minute. And oh yeah, 2 cleaning cloths if you can. So I like a soft cloth for doing the paintwork and stuff. And yeah, so we only work term time, and that means that we've got to make enough money for the summer holidays through the year. And obviously that hasn't happened this year because the government has decided, we'll give you a little bit of cash, but schools are closed, and that's fine. We understand why that's happening. But now with schools kind of making this decision, and I think this is going to be a general kind of thing across the board. I think a lot of schools are going to go the way that one of the schools I teach at has gone, is basically saying, no, the kids are so far behind on their other subjects that we can't afford to take them out of lessons for their peripatetic music tuition, which is fine, except it's going to put those children back on their music, which they're already back on. And if they're doing that as a GCSE option, which a lot of our students are, they're already behind. Some of them couldn't do virtual lessons just because of lack of strong internet access, lack of scheduling, lack of equipment. We kind of presume that everyone's got Netflix and decent broadband and a good phone and a good tablet, and it just isn't the case. Like the different socioeconomic backgrounds that people who I teach come from is pretty varied. So yeah, there's this situation where there isn't going to be peripatetic music lessons in a lot of schools. They're just going to be gone. So they're not going to be face to face. They'll be online, but not in school time. So kind of, if you think about what a lot of teachers like myself used to do, is I would teach in schools during the day, and then as soon as school closed, that's when my private tuition started. So I would teach either retired students or other school children after school, or adults. Okay. So excuse me, they're basically saying you now have to teach the children that you were teaching in school time in non-school time, and that essentially halves your working day. Because I'm very fortunate in that I've got some retired students who I can fit in during daytimes, but not everyone's in that position. So any teachers that aren't teaching online are going to be really, really stuck. And if you were hoping that things would get back to some form of normal as a music teacher, you are really, really stuck at this point. So here's what I would recommend. First of all, if you are unionised, get in touch with your union and talk to them straight away, Monday morning. Make it happen, because there might be some kind of recourse that those guys can help you with. There might be something that they can do. I don't know if they are or not, because I'm not part of the teachers union. And the reason why is because I've been sort of running down my teaching in schools over the last few years. I've been gearing up for retiring from that, to be honest. I've not really made that public until now, but that's something that I've been thinking about doing for a while. This whole scenario might be the thing that pushes me over the edge. Just a little bit about frets before we go any further. So this is, let me show you this, because you might like this if you like guitar nerdy stuff. This is a fret guard that you can get from eBay. It's a little bit of metal, and essentially it goes over the fret to protect the woodwork if you want to put anything on the fret. Okay, I've got a couple of these. I've extended this one with a bit of gaffer tape. Gaffer tape is just the thing that holds our musical world together, isn't it? So that gives us that, a nice little blanking plate. Now I put a little bit of polish, only a little bit of polish on there before, and the reason for that is because I want to polish the frets. I use Brasso, this wadding polish kind of stuff, and we'll pull a little bit of this off. Probably should wear gloves for this, but you know, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm all right. I think I'm safe enough. So the way that I've always gone about doing this is you make sure you get got a little bit of the Brasso-y kind of stuff in the wadding cloth, and then I'll go backwards and forwards a few times on each fret. I'm not going too deep. I do this on all my guitars maybe once a year. I try and go roughly the same number of kind of forwards and backwards strokes over each one of the frets, right? Okie dokie. So yeah, back to the teaching thing. First thing, if you're unionised, go and talk to union reps, see what they can do. If you're able to offer online lessons, then you need to shore up your online students now, because I am pretty sure that over the course of the next 6 months, these students will change from being the school's students that you teach in school to being your private students. I think there's going to be a move by a lot of schools to make that separation. A couple of schools that I teach at made that kind of distinction a while ago, so I invoice parents directly instead of invoicing the school, and they basically outsourced their previous guitar peri lesson admin to me, so I get to do all of the invoicing rather than just writing the invoice to the school and saying, I taught 10 students, send me some cash. So I think that there's going to be a move away from peri lessons in schools. And I could be completely wrong, and history will tell. And if I am, then no harm, no foul. But I genuinely think that turning those students into private students and getting in touch with them and making that connection now and getting them on your books is, first of all, a step that you should make. You're not trying to do the school out of anything. There aren't any lessons to steal at this point in time, are there? So anything that you can get from this is worth doing. The other thing that I would suggest that you do, if you're a music teacher, there's a solid chance that you're a musician, right? And I know a lot of music teachers that perform and are great at it. I know a lot of music teachers that don't perform and aren't very comfortable with performance generally. It's time to get comfortable, people, because there is a whole world of streaming out there that is right at your fingertips, and you can literally stream from your phone. If you've got a phone and you've got a Wi-Fi connection, you've got everything that you need to literally go online, play a little gig, throw a tip jar up and make some money. And that's what you should be doing. If you're not doing that, then you're 3 months later than everybody else who is doing that, and you're missing out on some, I wouldn't say income, but you're certainly missing out on what's going to go in your tip jar. And it's not inconsiderable. If you're regular with the streaming and the gigging, as I am, I do a couple a week, and they're always on the same days and they're always at the same time, you'll build a nice little community of people that actually are bothered about you. And I don't want to speak disparagingly about schools, but the peripatetic music staff at most schools are one step below the janitor in terms of how important they are seen to the faculty. In most cases, in my experience. Now, if you've got a really good head of music who's on the ball, and you've got a head at the school who is actually interested in music and values it within your school, that might be a different story. And it is a great generalization on my part. But I've been teaching in schools for 20 odd years now, and that's always kind of how it's felt. It's the last thing on the list. It's the first thing on the list at Christmas when they want a concert, but it's the last thing on the list the rest of the year. And I understand why. I totally get it. It's like the STEM subjects take importance. You can't fly a mission to Mars with a room full of people who only studied how to play the bassoon. But when you shoot the film of that Mars mission, you're going to want some decent orchestral music, right? And that's where that comes from. So I'm obviously passionate about teaching. I've taught for a long time, and I've got a lot of people that I know are friends with me on Facebook, and I've seen some of my gigs and stuff that might not be aware that this move's coming. You might have been waiting for September and hoping to get back to normal. But the streaming thing is where I would point you at, because it's going to be the future. I think that not only are streaming gigs going to be huge in the future, and that's an obvious thing to say, because that's happening now. You're seeing a lot of agencies and ticket people like Live Nation putting ridiculous kind of contracts together for artists, so that the artist takes all of the blame if the gig's cancelled and stuff. It's just ludicrous. So with that in mind, the whole streaming thing is going to be huge. It's going to be even bigger than we can imagine it being right now. So much so, I think that live artists are going to start incorporating the streaming aspect into live gigs, because I think that they will see the impact that the streaming has had on their fan numbers, on their merch sales, on their engagement with people, and it will go up. I'm certainly going to do that when we get back to gigging. I'm working on methods of doing that already. And it's complicated, but it's going to be good fun, So you widen your audience. You're playing to the audience that are in the room. You're playing to the audience that are in the front room. And if all of those people have got ways of tipping you and they've got ways of buying your merch, it's all good. So yeah, I wanted to sort of lay that out really to any of my music friends, musician friends, teacher friends. You need to start shoring up what's going on with your business. You need to make sure that the people who you're teaching, that you have direct contact with them, that you can organise those private lessons online. And you need to, if you're not on top of the tech for doing that, you need to get on top of the tech for doing that. You need to make that an absolute priority, because there are, in my experience with the schools that I teach at, I don't think there's going to be any lessons this year, unless there aren't online ones. I think the schools are going to prioritise the STEM subjects. I think they're not going to want to take people out of lessons. I could be completely wrong, but being prepared is not going to hurt. And the other thing is, speaking of being prepared, with the musical performance side of things, it's really important, I think, with the streaming to just get that done. So I've put a website together. There's going to be some content on there, hopefully later this weekend, certainly into next week. And it is onlinemusicianguide.com is the name of the website. If you go there, I'll put a link in the video. At the moment, there's just an email sign up. But when the site goes live, it's going to have everything that you need to know about streaming and doing your first little live gig. And literally, if you are a classical musician and you play a cello and you've got a mobile phone and a Wi-Fi connection, you can do a concert. Okay, you can stream to your friends on Facebook. You can build a following. And I'm going to take you through the steps in some videos to do just that. It's a free site. There's going to be a tip jar on the site, because that's part of the message of this kind of new way of doing online business, is that if you do something and you provide a service to someone, bang a tip jar up there. If you're playing them a song, it's like busking on the street. It's no different to that. And I've done busking on the street, and the online thing is better. I can do it from this lovely setting instead of being cold with those gloves with the fingertip thing, hole things. So yeah, that's kind of one of the things I wanted to talk to you all about. Next, we're going to put some strings on. Check this out. So these are Elixir NanoWeb 9-42s. 9s are pretty standard on a Strat. Strats like 9s quite a lot. If you play a Strat and you like the 9s but you feel the bottom end's a bit rattly, you can get 9 to 46s, which are hybrid strings. So they're like a bottom half of a 10 set with a top half of a 9 set. They're nice under your fingers. So let me show you how these go on. This little bridge here has a hole set at the back. I'm just going to lie that face down, make sure it doesn't fall off the chair. Make sure I don't fall off the chair while we're on the subject. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at. If you are a teacher and you've had these kind of experiences, or if you've got any of your own sort of thoughts on the matter, then give me a shout. There are things that you've got to watch out for when it comes to online lessons and contacting people for your online lessons, which is you need to check with the school about safeguarding guidelines. And this has been the whole safeguarding thing has had a nightmare with this, because the gospel on safeguarding for teachers forever has been you don't have any extracurricular video contact with your students ever. The end, amen. And now it's like, well, every lesson that's happened until kids have gone back to school have been video extracurricular lessons. So there's had to be a real big readjustment there. So you've got to make sure that that you're covered as a teacher, and you've got to make sure that the parents and everybody else are all happy with what's going on. I've got a few. I've not got any children that I teach from school, actually, strangely enough, which is one of the reasons why I'm thinking about not doing too much from school anymore, because I've managed to work my way into not relying on that income, and I'm kind of finding other ways of making ends meet. And that's made me think, well, if I can do without it now, I can do without it in September, and that's kind of the deal. But yeah, if you have had any experiences or anything like that, and you want to share or you want to hit me up, you can always drop me a message to the page, or you can drop me a message in Messenger if we are indeed friends on Facebook. It's all good. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. And I totally get, I don't want this to come across as a sob story for Perry teachers, because I've really enjoyed doing that aspect of school over the years. I've got some great enjoyment from seeing my students progress and how well they've done in things. But it does feel at points like it's been a battle, as opposed to us all being on the same team, on the same side. And it shouldn't feel like that when you're working, I think. And you might have a really, really positive experience, and I've got positive experiences from the last couple of schools that I've taught at over the last few years. But this whole kind of thing has just kind of shown the true colours, really, I suppose, of the board and the head and what have you. And it might be that they change their mind, and that's absolutely fine. And I can say this stuff because I'm really not worried about the repercussions at this point, in that I may or may not be continuing to do this anyway, But anyway, strings going on. So let me show you how you do this. So I've polished the frets a little bit, cleaned the fingerboard. Most teenage lads don't wash their hands very much, so these things usually need a good bit of scrubbing because they're covered in black, oinky, horrible finger poo. But Dan is a clean lad and clearly cleans his hands because it didn't need a lot of cleaning at all. It's all looking pretty spick and span. So that's really, really good. So the way that I kind of throw these strings on, I've done this the same way for years. You need a string winder. It's like a little football rattle without the rattle. Comes in really useful. You're going to push the string or pull the string through the hole so there's no extra string. You want to be about sort of maybe 5-6 inches away from the 12th fret with the string there. You hold the string here and you start winding the peg anti-clockwise, and the first wind is going to go over the extra bit of string that comes underneath, and the rest of the winds are going to go under that little bit of string when it pops round. And I just put a little right angle bend at the top there, and we're off. Not sure how well the camera's going to grab that, but I will try and do one of these a little bit further up. So ideally when you do this, you want one wind above the string protrusion that comes through, above the bend, if you will, and then you want 1 or 2 or 3. 2 or more is perfect. If you get more than 3, it starts getting a little bit kind of crammed on there. And yeah, I've done pretty well with that. That's good. And that just creates kind of a little, not a slip knot, but it's sort of like the two parts of the string force the middle bit together, and the right angle bend stops it from slipping through. And I find that to be a pretty reliable way of doing this. I've done this way for quite a while. So I'll kind of do that a bit slower this time with the A string. So there we go, 4 or 5 inches away. and then the winder goes on. We're turning the winder anti-clockwise. I'm holding the string and taking up the slack with this part of my hand. The first wind goes over that bit of string. We keep turning that until it comes all the way back through. We bend it up at the end, 45, and then the rest of the winds go underneath. And that gives you a nice little bite on the old string there. Cool. It's pretty cool. This guitar is probably not going to need an awful lot in the way of setting up, I wouldn't have thought, because it's already, I checked it out beforehand and it already had 9s on and already played great. So as long as it doesn't rattle or choke out on the bends of anything, I'm not going to do too much to that, apart from drop my string winder down the floor. There we go. So that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. The other thing with musicians was merch. I've never particularly been much of a merch guy because I've always been paid for the gigs that I've played really well. I know a lot of original bands gripe on the circuit, but I've mainly been in covers bands forever, to be honest, and I've only recently started, I mean, but in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, really started doing gigs where I play only my original songs, and they're usually on with a few other songwriters, you know, like compilation night kind of things. Sort of fancy open mics, really, where you've got a few guests or guested open mics. And I've rarely done original gigs of that nature. I play in the Trogs, so the Trogs do gigs where the Trogs play the Trogs songs, and that's technically an original gig, but they're not my songs, they're the Trogs songs, you know? And despite being a band member, it's like somebody else wrote those tunes. That there's a difference to doing your own stuff, you know, like music you've written yourself. So there's some guys that I'm seeing absolutely killing it with merch, and they do such a good job. And it's really not that hard. One of the things that's I've been looking at is exactly how much kit you need to record and produce yourself a CD while you're in lockdown, and it's not a lot. I mean, in some cases, if you've already got like a computer, if you're a gigging musician and you've got a mic, and you've got like a little mixing desk for gigging with, or you've got a mixer amp for gigging with, and you've got a computer, you literally might only need to buy an interface, download some free software, and then you've got everything essentially that you need to record yourself and your own original songs. And that's it. You don't need an awful lot more than that. There's loads of good tutorials about basic mixing and kind of production techniques. You don't need to do a full band arrangement of stuff. You know, if you're a songwriter and you've written your tunes, throw a mic up and record them, and then you've got something that you can fire out merch wise. And as far as platforms for selling it goes, social media is brilliant. You can make yourself on PayPal a little PayPal button, which is one of the one of the videos I'm going to put up on the Online Musician Guide website. And you can make one of these buttons in 5 minutes, and then you can just post that in your social media feeds. People can click on it and go straight to PayPal, and they're one click away from buying your merch if it's a CD or whatever it might be. And there's a lot of guys online saying, oh, CDs are dead and downloads are the way forward. Downloads pay very, very, very little short term. You can build up a big following and you can get some success with that. But if you want to actually put some food on the table within the next couple of weeks, I'm not sure that downloads are going to provide that kind of revenue. Unless you've already got a massive following, So if you're kind of like one-man band, singer-songwriter kind of dude, and you've been thinking about putting your own music out, this is a perfect time to do it. You might, like I say, literally need a few bits of kit. You might have to do a bit of homework, a bit of woodshedding, but it's a great time for it. I've recorded my current album, which will be coming out in the next 3 or 4 weeks, all in this room, and I think I've used 2 mics to record it, and that's it. Like everything else just plugged straight into my little audio interface. And there was no super fancy equipment, like there's not an awful lot of fanciness going on. I mixed most of it on headphones because I was working late into the night, and I used a few effects, maybe a handful, 3 or 4 effects, plugins you call them, on the whole thing. So not an awful lot at all. And some of the bits of kit I've got are quite expensive, I've got to be honest. But to be honest, for what I've used them for, I could have used a £100 audio interface instead of a big fancy shiny one like I've got. And it wouldn't have made particularly any difference to the outcome. Once the strings are on, we bend the string up, and then I like to put a cut probably about 1 centimetre. Okay, just there. You'll like the fact that I used imperial for the inches, metric for the centimetres on here, but you know, that's how we go. They've all got their uses. I really need to oil these snips because I've got to keep pulling them out because the spring's dead. And that is us, and that's just about half an hour, which is near enough what I was expecting it would be. I'm going to give that a quick tune. What's a guitar to hit? I'll do it by ear real quick, and then I'll get the tuner out. Now, because the trem on this is set slightly floating, you might be able to see there's a little bit of a gap here where you can kind of like wobbly push down, only a tiny gap. It's slightly floating, so we have to tune it a few times. What I usually like to do, I've not done it this time, I should have done it really, is I like to have a guess. I like to kind of try and imagine the E note ringing and then seeing how far out I am with the tuner. There's a good chance that's a little bit flat because I tend to err on the side of flat with my guesses, but also the 12 string's a bit warm, so that might be a touch flat. Yeah, it's flat. There it is. So now you're just watching a man with a beard trying to tune a Strat in a hurry. But that's quite nice. There's one more thing that I want to do once this is nearly in tune, show you how to do, and that is just bending the strings in. Okay, so there's a thing like I used to work in a music store, and people would always say, oh, how long does it take the strings to bed in? There was this rumour about strings bedding in, and I never understood what bedding in was. And it's basically the string comes with a certain amount of tension that you need to relieve before it stops stretching. So it's almost like you stretch it, and it doesn't quite go back to where it started, and then you stretch it again, and it doesn't quite go back to where it started. And it'll do that 3 or 4 times, and then it'll level out so that it does go back to where it started. You can hear this. So if I play this E, and then I just pinch the string like that, and I play it again, hear that? That's dropped quite a lot, okay? Okay, so that's one go. Now I have another go, another pinch. That's only dropped a tone this time. I'll do it again. That's dropped a semitone, right? So every time the string's doing a little bit less, and that's only a bit flat. And this next time, it's barely dropped at all. Now we leave it. You can keep doing that until it doesn't drop at all, but it's nice to leave just a little bit in the string, otherwise they go dead a bit quick. That's what I find in my experience. I'm going to do the same with the A. So give that a tweak. Yeah, it's quite well. And when you've been doing this for a while, you'll kind of get a feel for them. So I'm just tweaking the string and tuning it back up. The thin ones need less of it than the thick ones, the wound strings do. Okay, that's not in tune, but that's close enough for now. And the other thing I want to do is the strings, the E string and the B string just feel a tiny bit low. And I noticed before when I was playing it that the saddles are rattling just a little bit. So I'm just going to tighten these saddles up a little. The G's okay, but I just found the B and the E to be a little bit on the low side. And when you're doing bends, you don't want the strings super, super, super low, otherwise you can't get your finger under the bend. That's quite nice. So now I'm going to get the tuner once more, give it another little tune, and then we're pretty much done. So, in summary, lovely people, this has been a little bit of a marathon video, hasn't it? Just over half an hour, which is a bit much. I might do a bit of editing. So if you're a music teacher, get unioned up and see what your union can do for you. I don't know what it's going to be. It might be something, it might be nothing, but it's worth a look. It may well be that come September time, things have gone back to pretty much normal. But I can kind of see a trend of the Perry lessons and Perry teachers, having to twiddle their thumbs a little bit and either jump through hoops to get video lessons done or end up not doing them at all. So I would recommend that you look after yourself, make sure that you're covered, so that you've got the students lined up that you need to teach. I'm going to continue teaching over most of the summer, just because there doesn't seem to be any point in not doing. I don't think anyone's going on holiday anytime soon. And we had a good spate of weeks where there was no lessons because we were waiting to see if school would reopen. So I'm going to carry on doing that. I might organise my own kind of maybe 4 weeks on, 1 week off kind of thing, just to sort of keep a little bit of freedom there. If people do want to go away and visit family, if that's kind of allowed, then that allows them to do that. But yeah, be prepared to get technical. Start getting your video on if you're not doing it already, when it comes to your teaching. And also with the gigging and with the live performing, even if it's not your favourite thing, do it. Yeah, there's piano teachers that I know that put their practice sessions online as Facebook live sessions, and if they throw a tip jar up, God only knows, you know what I mean? It's like they may well get people sort of listening thinking, oh, that's fantastic. And if you start taking requests, then they're off. So I think part of being a musician should be performance, not just teaching, but it should be getting out there and doing a bit of that. So if you want to come and join me on my live streams, they are on a Monday and a Thursday evening, 8:30 p.m. till 11 p.m. And they're really good fun. We've got a great community of people in the chat. We do a phone a friend kind of thing on a Monday where we'll just phone somebody out of the chat randomly. On a Thursday, I've got featured artists. All these guys, CDs on the wall, they've all been guests on the show. And I've played some of their songs. I've jammed with them in real life, some of those guys. Some of them live across the road. It's brilliant. So we've got like this really nice community of people, great musicians, great music, sort of tuning in and listening, and then contributing their stuff. So I think that that's going to be a really important part of the future when it comes to music generally. And that's kind of that. If you are watching on YouTube, it'd be great if you wouldn't mind giving a little thumbs up. And if you want to know when the next one of these goes up, just in case you've got an extra half hour to kill, you want to watch a man with a beard put strings on a piece of wood, then yeah, hit the little bell and you'll get a notification. Please like and subscribe and do all of that. If you're on any of the other social medias like Facebook, come and say hello on the Facebook page. And the live streaming goes out on Facebook mainly. So come and say hello there. It's facebook.com/John W. Doyle Music. And then on Instagram, it's Instagram/John W. Doyle. It's all there. So you're all more than welcome to come and join in. Hit me up in the comments and let me know how you're doing. If there's anything that I've talked about that you want any further advice about and I can help with, drop me a message. And, if I can point you in the right direction, I will. And make sure you go and sign up if you're interested in doing live streaming performances and you want, a bit of advice. And I've got to be perfectly frank, I'm no expert at this. I've been streaming for, a few months and I haven't made any particular massive changes. In fact, everything that I use for filming and recording is just stuff that I have in the house. So this is filmed on like an old iPhone and, there's a mic that I used to use that I've kind of thrown up on a boom and stuff. And, there's another iPhone pointing at the guitar so you can see that. It's really, really simple stuff. The editing software I used to put it all together is free. So there's there's a really nice cottage industry thing forming around, around musicians and around music that you need to get moving and be a part of if you want to make it through, I think, what's going to be a really trying time for the next possibly 18 months, 2 years. If you're a music teacher and if you're a musician. So onlinemusicianguide.com, go and check that out. All the links are in the description and go and sign up. And as soon as there's some decent content on there, you'll get an email and then it's all free and hopefully we'll get you streaming and get you seeing some income. So thanks for sticking with me and having a brew and watching me put strings on this for one of my lads that I teach. Is a great player, he's a good lad as well. So Dan, big shout out to you, mate, for dropping your guitar off with me. Social distancing rules were applied, obviously. It's all been disinfected, and it will be before it goes back to him. So, there you have it. Have a great one, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye.